Hi everyone, it's Scully and today I'm here with a tutorial on how I draw hair. So to start off, we'll be looking at some ways I used to draw hair, which didn't really look very good at the time. And I'm not saying you can't make any of these methods work, because you definitely can, and it's not like I know the only way or even the best way to draw hair. But these are some ways I did it when I was younger that I don't think produced the best results. So we've got scribbled in hair, we've got what I call paper hair, where everything's one flat surface and you don't have much volume to it. And anime hair, which is this big spiky fluffy mess that nobody really has. I have seen people draw this really well, I cannot, and it's not a very good starting place if you don't understand how hair works. Anime hair too is something I used to do a lot. I think I picked it up from a Christopher Hart book, where you draw the hair in all little sections, and when I used to draw this as a kid it looked absolutely atrocious, so we don't do that anymore, even though you can get a really nice effect if you aren't really heavy-handed like me. As you can see, I still can't get a very good effect with this, it's very messy. So how do I draw hair? Well, for a start, we're going to be drawing the part onto the model's head, and I've done it in 3 different places for examples. And if you look at the top of the screen, I've made a little list of things I've always struggled with. So we're going to be looking at all of that today in this tutorial, and hopefully it will give you a bit of a helping hand. So the first thing I wanted to look at is sketching the hair out in blocks, little triangles and very basic shapes to start off with, and then dividing it up into little strands along the ends. This is the most common way I draw hair because I draw a lot of blunt fringes these days. But you can also apply this to any hairstyle you want. I find something people often forget is that girls have sideburns too that tend to hang down, so I thought I'd put a bit of special emphasis on that. And all the different ways you can style hair, because obviously there's roughly 6 million hairstyles in the world, and you can draw all of them with practice and suffering and photo references. This should apply to drawing short hair for boys too, which is not something I think I've particularly mastered for myself, but we're working on it, we're always working on it, and a lot of these hairstyles could be applicable to a male character as well, or just a short-haired character, you know. A very important thing I'm doing here that took me ages to learn is drawing a good hairline when you're drawing a shaved side on a character's hair. People don't have flat hairlines, all our hairlines are very irregular, so if you can try and show that in your drawings, they will probably look a lot better. So I'm just dropping the opacity now so I can start doing something that sort of looks like line art over the top of them. Oh no, wait, hold on. We're doing a braids tutorial first. I made this today and I've already forgotten what I put in it. This is just showing you how to use photo reference to draw a certain type of hair. Mostly because I can't draw braids without a photo reference because they are hard. And honestly, if you've been messing up braids until now, it's nothing to be ashamed of because everyone is always doing it. Now with any luck, yeah, here we go. Okay, so Scully, how do we line it? Well, I'm terrible at that too. I think my main mistake on this first one was I tried to use my oil paintbrush to do the lines, which I've seen the artist Nadia Axel do a lot recently, and I thought I could achieve it without practicing, and that clearly went really well for me. I do switch to my normal line arting brush after this and everything comes out a lot better. But enjoy my slightly wonky attempt at line arting with a paintbrush. I think it still came out looking pretty good, though I'm not sure what ended up going on with the top of the fringe. So the basic way I would advise to line things is to have a really solid sketch down first. And make sure you're getting the ends very tapered in your lines, as that'll give the hair a more fluffy and delicate look. I'd also advise using a thinner line art brush than you do for, say, the face, because it'll just help with that really wispy, delicate look that hair has. So now I've moved on to my normal line art brush which is an edit of the basic G pen, I believe, but I adjusted the pressure and the opacity a bit to how I like it. So as you can see, I'm adding quite heavy line shading in places where the hair meets, and I just do that by drawing an extra little V over where the two strands meet each other. Going on to the short hair, this is probably the one I've personally struggled the most with. So the way I like to do it is to always keep in mind that the hair's coming out from the part, and sort of draw it like almost like strips of fabric are being glued on, and then I can sort of pile them up like that. So now I'm drawing in that very important jaggedy hairline, and I'm filling in the shades with little crisscrosses, which is something I like to do in my style personally. You obviously don't have to pick that bit up. I'm adding a little bit of extra line shading, as I've just noted on the canvas. If you want to go through this slower and look at the notes on the canvas, that might be more helpful to you than my voiceover, because I'm really nervous and I don't know what I'm doing for my first video. So now we're on to colouring, which is the bit I actually feel quite confident about after the sketching. So I'm filling everything in with this lovely lime green colour to start off, and that's just to get like the base of where the hair is, just so I can colour over it later. I really recommend doing this and using it to mask off parts of the hair, because it just makes colouring a lot easier. If you don't know how to use masks, again, I'd really recommend Nadia Axel's tutorial on how to do masks, so I'll link that in the description. So now I'm adding some shading and lighting to the hair, and I do this by brushing a darker brush colour on top and then putting a lighter one at the bottom. Then I put colour variation on top of it with a colour layer. So as you can see, I'm just grabbing some different shading colours and dabbing them onto the hair. Then I pick a colour burn layer for shading, even though I'd usually use multiply because it looks better with multiple colours. And I take a dark blue and start shading things in, which, as you can see, really picks out the colour variation, so that's why I'd recommend colour burn for shading hair. Now I'm putting some highlight layers on with colour dodge, and then I believe I used vivid light for putting the final highlights on, and then I add some rim lights to the hair with a simple white brush and some yellow to make it look like multiple light sources are catching the hair. Now I add some posterization effects over the top, because I think it just gives more variance to the way the hair looks. This step is completely optional, it's just something I like to do personally because I think it looks cool. I'm just making a little list of the shading techniques you might want to try, and yeah, basically my advice is keep putting layers on layers until you get something that looks really fancy. So once again, I'm going to do dark airbrush on the top, light airbrush on the bottom, and this is a technique I picked up years ago and I've never really found any reason to not use it because it pretty much always looks pretty good. Now I'm adding some cell shading on a multiply layer in a really awful looking green colour, so I'll be changing that in a second. There we go. So I've changed that to a purple now, so it looks a bit less gunky. So then I just add some little spot shades and a lighter wash of colour with overlay underneath on low opacity. So that makes a much simpler and quicker way of doing the hair, because it takes way less layers and time, but I think it still looks pretty good. And lastly, on the girl with the bun, I'm going to be doing very, very simple cell shading for when you're not really fussed and you're going for a bit more of a cartoony look. I did still fuss with it a bit by putting a gradient onto the actual shading to make it look a bit more interesting, but apart from that, I literally just drew in the shadows on a multiply layer. And aside from that, that's pretty much everything I did with this today, so I really hope you enjoyed this and found it helpful. I'm sorry my nervous recording voice is so nervous, and maybe hit me with a like and subscribe because I'm just trying to get started. Hope you enjoyed. Bye!